Hello, everyone. I am Amita from Nourishta, a platform for natural and holistic therapies. In our session today, we will be talking about Ayurvedic herbs that help maintain hormonal balance specifically for women. So, joining me is John Edwards, and he will be talking about, different herbs that are healthy. And I just want to say, Ayurvedic herbs have become nectar to a healthy life with turmeric and ashwagandha. There you are. Hi, John. How are you?
Hi, how's it going?
All right. We finally figured it out. Thank you so much for joining.
Well, technology is not my strong suit, so we'll have
Okay.
to we'll work on that.
All right. All right. So I was just telling our viewers that we are going to be talking about different herbs that are good for to restore women hormonal balance. And Jason has been in the natural industry for the last 25 years, I think, right?
That's
Um,
correct, yeah.
So we will start with talking about hormonal balance to restore hormonal balance for women. So maybe you can get started a little bit, and then we'll go into the herbs part after that.
Sure. So with herbs, a lot of times we kind of focus on how they work like a drug, and
Yeah.
very often they don't work like drugs. They have a very different mechanism of activity. And so when we look at hormonal balance, specifically for women, we're looking at menstrual issues,
Mm-hmm.
menopausal issues. And so there's some very specific difficulties that
Mm-hmm.
we're trying to address. And there's really a nice small group of herbs that we can go to with Ayurveda that
Yeah.
are good for all doshas. They're balancing herbs. We call them rasayanas. And those are really a go-to for all those conditions, whether it's menopause or extended periods or periods that are not there, not regular, overly heavy. So we can use very often the same set of herbs to address all of those issues because they are that balancing type of herb.
Got it. And so your work has been mainly in formulations or just selling and marketing of the natural, right? That's what your work has been over the
Mm,
last 25 plus 30 years or something like that.
Yeah, I started out specifically in sales and learned quite a bit about formulation. So I moved into the formulation area, and um,
Yeah.
we have our own brand that we make and promote.
Hmm.
Um,
That's right.
so when I look at herbs for women's products, I try
Hmm.
to look for ones that have a broad system of activity, or a broad mechanism of activity, so that they'll get the most bang for their buck, and especially because hormonal issues could be very specific to the individual. So if we're just increasing, for example, certain types of estrogen
Yeah.
or increasing progesterone, we're only kind of taking a one-sided approach, and that's a one size fits all, which doesn't really work for hormonal balance. Which is why botanicals that we talk about, for example, pomegranate.
Yeah.
Pomegranate helps the body manipulate its own supply of three different hormones that, and we've got scientific evidence of that, but then we
Hmm.
also have anecdotal evidence.
Hmm.
This has been used for women's health throughout the entire Middle East, through India, most of Asia, for 10, 15,000 years in documents. So we know that pomegranate has empirical data. And then more recently, we've seen quite a bit of data coming from research in the allopathic world as well. So those are the types of herbs that we look for. We look for ones that have empirical use and have scientific data to back that up.
Got it. So let's just start with maybe you could educate us. You talked about some of the common herbs that can be used for a woman who's younger, like, menstruation issues, or maybe PCOS, slightly younger, and then the later on, when the menstruation stops and the menopause, the whole journey of a woman is so fascinating if you think about it, right?
Yeah.
And it's a fascinating, right? So maybe let's start with the beginning, when the young girl, when the menstruation, and then all these issues with the cramps and the pain. So are you said you're using the similar kind of herbs throughout the journey, or is there something different here, and then as you kind of move along, that something different happens?
Yeah, there are herbs that are specific for those life stages,
Yeah.
but some of them kind of play through the whole life cycle for women. One of the herbs that has become a favorite in the United States for just recently, actually, is ashwagandha.
Mm-hmm.
And it's funny, when I first started selling Ayurveda a long, long time ago, um, ashwagandha was, everybody said, oh, that's like ginseng. And they
Yeah.
kind of dismissed it. But ashwagandha has so many different angles that it works on in the body.
Yeah.
And a lot of times, 20 years ago, people thought it was a male herb.
Oh.
And it technically is a male herb, but that's the gender of the gender of the herb itself,
Yeah.
not who it's best for.
Yeah.
And so women can, through their entire life cycle, can benefit from ashwagandha. Now, ashwagandha doesn't really have as much to do with hormonal balance as it does with overall health and wellness. But I've got a couple studies pulled up.
Sure. Yeah. I
So
mean,
the for example, one of the issues that women with hormonal imbalances complain about is a lack of libido or
okay.
sexual interest or sexual satisfaction.
Yeah.
And this one study that I highlighted here is it talks about ashwagandha as being an aphrodisiac. Now, aphrodisiac is kind of a
Yeah.
misnomer. If we
Yeah.
feel good and we have more energy, we're more amorous. I mean,
Yeah.
that's just the way it goes. And
Mm-hmm.
so ashwagandha does that. It increases energy levels.
Okay.
But it also, in this study, made improvements over placebo for arousal, lubrication, orgasm, and satisfaction. Additionally, when we look at hormonal imbalances, a lot of that has to do with our stress level.
Yeah.
Cortisol's in the news all the time. We talk
Mm-hmm.
about that, a stress hormone that is produced by the body for that fight or
Mm-hmm.
flight
Yeah.
mechanism.
Yeah.
So now cortisol is released when we're under stress, but it's also released when we're in front of um, a refrigerator that has a slightly off a compressor, or a light fixture that has a ballast that's off a little bit, or a hum in the background from a fan. All of these seemingly, usual day-to-day stuff that
Yeah.
increases the cortisol levels.
Wow.
And so with ashwagandha, we can help control those cortisol levels, and the cortisol levels will, if they get out of control, they can increase blood sugar,
Yeah.
um, anxiousness, they can increase congestion, all good things if we're trying to run away from a bear or a saber-toothed tiger. But when we're sitting at the desk in front of a computer, not such a good thing. And that cortisol can suppress the production of other types of hormones, sexual
Got-
hormones,
Yeah.
which will throw everything off balance. So we get the cortisol and those stress hormones under control.
Mm-hmm.
Ashwagandha also has been shown in several studies to improve sleep
Mm.
and sleep quality.
Yeah.
And we know that our sleep quality and the amount of sleep that we get also affect how our hormones are produced, how they're
Mm-hmm.
utilized by the body, how the body allocates those resources. So the first herb for any woman in any stage of her life that I would recommend would have to be ashwagandha. Just a
And
good overall
yeah,
health.
yeah, the ashwagandha. I mean, turmeric and ashwagandha. they are like the front, they're taking the front row seats of almost all natural health magazines. You pick up, I mean, they're like, your showstoppers right now. I mean, amazing, right? A few
Yeah.
years back, nobody even knew what turmeric and ashwagandha. I'm originally from India. Okay, so someone is asking, how do we consume ashwagandha and how much do you take? That's a good question.
That is a good question. If you're taking an ashwagandha extract, most of the time the recommendation is between 500 and 2,000 milligrams a day.
Okay.
That's a really big
Yeah.
recommendation. It kind of depends on how the extraction method is done.
Yeah.
If you are taking raw ashwagandha, that's when you would need something closer to that 2,000 milligrams, 2,500 milligrams of whole herb, unextracted. That's generally not the way it's consumed. It's generally not the way it's recommended. The ashwagandha that we use is extracted twice. That's my preferred method. It gives the full spectrum. That's 500 milligrams a day for most people is going to be plenty. If you're taking
500 milligrams.
500 milligram capsule or powder. And if you're
a powder,
and if you're using maybe a cheaper version or cheaper brand of ashwagandha, you may need to up that to 1,000 milligrams a day. But I don't know too many people that need any more than that. I've never met too many people that could even tolerate it. Ashwagandha is a nightshade, and so anyone who has an allergy to nightshades should not consume it.
I see.
Look for alternatives there.
Mm-hmm.
You can end up with people who take it for energy and they start falling asleep during the day, especially if they take too much.
Oh my
God! Because ashwagandha kind of has it's a balance. It really balances your body. So if you need sleep, it's going to push you to go to sleep. But during the day when we're active, we've had enough sleep. Ashwagandha is a great pick-me-up. I like to put ashwagandha powder in my coffee in the morning.
Wow.
It has a bitter flavor that goes kind of with the coffee flavor itself, and that heat and that energy that goes straight in, and I feel it right away. So for women, general recommendation is going to be about 500 milligrams of extract a day.
Got it. So what about Shatavari? I mean, I'm not an Ayurvedic practitioner. I'm just a general user. But I've heard a lot of research being done on Shatavari as well, right? That being like, I go to these stores and I see that. So what are your thoughts and feedback on Shatavari herb as well?
Well, Shatavari would be the second herb that I would recommend for a woman during her years of menstruation.
Okay.
It is a great balancing herb. It is the perfect companion to ashwagandha. Mm-hmm. It has a lot of similar activities. Close cousin to asparagus. Gives us some energy, reduces some of those stress hormones, but just like slightly different mechanism of activity.
Yeah.
If you're going to eat the powder, it's a much better flavor than ashwagandha. The smell is much different as well. Like all asparagus, it has a very unique aroma, but not the smell of the horse that we get with ashwagandha. Yeah. But a lot of practitioners will combine both ashwagandha and shatavari together, and this treats a lot of different conditions. Both of them are very balancing, and they kind of fill in the cracks where the others or the other herb is lacking. So it's a great adjunct to any protocol for women during their childbearing years.
Got it. Any other herbs that are commonly used? I mean, you talked about pomegranate, you talked about ashwagandha, we talked about shatavari. Anything else that you like to mention specifically for, well, the topic is women, so we are talking about women here.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of different herbs that we could go into, but the
Okay.
big ones are the ones we mentioned, and then tribulus is one that is very common for use, and one that we like to take advantage of as well. And again, when I started in the industry back in the 90s,
Wow.
everybody thought of tribulus as a bodybuilder herb, because it increases testosterone
Yeah.
and it make you lift a bit more weight. But the reality is it makes our bodies more sensitive to the testosterone that we produce, and it may increase testosterone in some individuals. But as men and women, we both have some testosterone that we produce that gives us some aspect of ourselves and improves our health. So tribulus is an excellent additive. Typically, it's in menopausal formulas
Okay.
rather than in premenopause or during childbearing years,
Yeah. Yeah.
unless there's an issue with libido and sex drive.
Got
And
it.
then
Got it.
it might be a good additive.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
Yeah, there's a lot of talk about, and I know, you have a company that formulates herbs. And this is an educational session. What about the rasayanas? You have a lot. You talk a lot about in your. I saw in your Instagram post on rasayanas, Ayurveda rasayanas. So how do they come into play in the hormonal balance? And we don't have to talk only about women. Hormonal imbalance can happen amongst men as well, right?
that's correct. Yeah. So we're all a product of hormones. Even the
Yes.
shape
Yeah.
of our eyes are determined by hormone levels.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, well, with rasayanas kind of came into our purview about 10 or 12 years ago,
Mm-hmm.
and part of that for me as a formulator and as a person selling Ayurveda in the United States,
Yeah.
it came out of necessity because the American public doesn't really understand doshas.
That's right.
It kind of flies in the face of our culture.
Yeah.
If we're all equal, why is this one pitta and this one vata, and why do they get to eat whatever they want and I have to stick to this regimen? And so it was very difficult for folks to accept the concept of dosha, and it became complex for them. It also confused them because they would go to multiple practitioners that would give them different diagnosis based on different doshas. So the concept of dosha really has some challenges still with the culture here in the U.S. especially.
Yeah.
So rasayanas really resonated with us as a herbal company because we saw this as an opportunity to bring the wisdom of Ayurveda and the understanding of herbalism that comes from that to the States without tying everybody down to understanding the full system.
Okay.
So for us, it was a monetary venture. It helped improve our ability to discuss Ayurveda to the everyday person, and it really benefited us to switch our philosophy to more of a rasayana. And really, when you're creating a product that is for everybody and not just for your patient, it's a much easier route to do. And so that was the reason that we started looking at rasayanas and formulating using herbs that are considered rasayanas.
So what exactly is rasayana? I think a lot of us don't understand what rasayana is, right? So what is the definition of rasayana? Maybe you can educate us a little bit on that.
Yeah. So rasayana if you're interested in Chinese medicine,
Yeah.
rasayanas are very similar to the tonics, the superior tonics.
Tonic. Okay.
So a tonic is anything that balances the body. Like we were
Got
talking
it.
about ashwagandha. If your body is wore down and you need some sleep,
Yeah.
ashwagandha is going to help you get to sleep, and
Yeah.
you'll sleep better. If you're getting enough sleep, but you need more ATP, you need more energy created at the cellular level, ashwagandha is going to kind of amp you up. It's going to give you some energy. And so that's the concept of a rasayana, is that it does that which the body needs in the vein that
Got it.
it's operating in.
So
And,
rasana is
and superior
combination
tonic,
of it's a tonic, but it's combination of different type of herbs. I mean, and just trying to understand the concept of rasana is different type of herbs, like a tonic. When we were kids, we would say, okay, 1 spoon of tonic, and you take it. That's the same concept, right?
it's the same concept, but these are individual herbs that are designated as rasayanas, so they're
Got it.
individual tonics.
Got it.
And that's the concept that people tend to understand a tonic. From the cartoon characters we used to watch, would take a teaspoon of what was labeled tonic, and then they would feel energized and they'd be ready for the day.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of what rasayanas do. They help the body find balance, and they're not as dependent on the dosha of the body as they are there as a balancing agent. And so, I mean, to understand the rasayana, you kind of have to have a general understanding of what doshas are.
Yes.
The different constitutions of the body.
Yeah.
And when I'm talking to lay people, a lot of times I'm talking about just kind of mentioning it to give them a better understanding of the whole science of Ayurveda.
Mm-hmm.
But you remember Dr. Phil came out with a diet plan, and he had everybody had different body types, but his dosas were based on fruit. If you're shaped like a pear, this is you, and if you're shaped like an apple, this is you. And then Dr. Peter Diadamo came out with a system called Eat Right for Your Blood Type, and he broke up the population by their blood type. And then there's sub-blood types, So if you're A, you eat this diet. If you're B, you eat this diet. If you're AB, you eat this. So if we go back and we start looking at every system of healing in history, we see that everybody uses some way to break the population up and some way to categorize demographics. And so Ayurveda's done this on doshas, and doshas are constitutions.
Yes.
They're ways for the body to, or for people to categorize how their body reacts with the environment, their food, and their general, their genes, basically. What food works best with them, what types of medicines work best for them.
Yeah.
When we deal with emergency medicine, we don't know the person. And it's difficult to diagnose or establish someone's dosha if you don't know them and you haven't treated them for a while. You can make an offhanded judgment. You may be right. You may be wrong. It may be, just the time of day, or they may be moving into menopause, which might put them into a different dosha. So with emergency medicine, we just don't know. Somebody comes to us and says, I need help. I need pain relief, or I need this. We can give them a rasayana, which is an herb that we know has a benefit no matter what their body type or dosha or constitution is. And so that's why I say they're kind of like tonics, because they tend to work for everybody in much the same way.
Yeah. No, I understand. I just wanted for a viewer. So it's independent of the constitution, the concept of dosha. And quite honestly, in America, you're absolutely right. It's a bit difficult for people to understand the concept of doshas. But Chinese medicine also, Korean medicine, for example, Sasang, I think, they talk about the same concept of they have 4 different constitution type, in Chinese medicine, they talk about the similar kind of concept of 4 different body types, and according to your body type, what you should eat. I mean, even the DNA testing for that matter is
Yeah,
individualized. It's the
yeah,
same
yeah.
concept if you think about it. We are now
We,
proving it
we,
by science,
we've come
right?
full circle, haven't we?
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. It's, we are doing the DNA testing, and according to your DNA testing, the nutritional deficiencies, oh, you should eat this versus that. So exactly the same concept. They're just using an English language that is easily understood rather than using a term called dosha, which is like, oh my God, what the heck dosha is? It's a very foreign concept,
Yeah, yeah.
you know?
So we found that this idea of rasayan has resonated with folks because
Yeah, yeah,
European herbalism is much the same way
yeah,
in that this herb's good for sleep, and so
yeah.
everybody uses it, and so that was the whole reason that we started studying rasayanas, and my teacher in India was trying to teach me Sanskrit at the same time, which was not going well. But
Well, thank you so much. Anything else you would like to add? I think it's been a very amazing session. We should do different sessions on different topics,
that'd be great. Now that I understand the technology a little bit, I'll be better prepared for the next time. But thanks so much. Yeah, no, I think one of the things to focus in on if you're looking at herbs for
Yes,
women's hormonal balance
yes.
is those big 4 that we talked about. We didn't really talk a lot about pomegranate, but that's a powerhouse, and it has been used since the
Okay,
dawn of time. And ashwagandha is good for all people,
okay.
especially post-pandemic. This is going to
Yeah,
help the
yeah.
stress level of the world. So
Yeah. So
definitely
ashwagandha, pomegranate, shatavari, and what was the fourth one? The fourth one?
tribulus.
Tribulus, yes. So
Tribulus, yeah.
four herbs Jason talked about. And Jason is a formulator, by the way. I don't know, there were some technical issues in the beginning. Maybe I didn't introduce properly. But at the end of the session, Jason Edwards, he's a formulator. He's been in the natural industry for over 30 years, and he formulates herbs right now. He has his own company. We're not trying to sell anything. This is an educational session. So we are just talking about the herbs, the herbs that can help balance the hormones. That is the intent here. Any last comments from you before we wrap up?
Well, I just wanted to thank you. Thank you for inviting me on and for your patience with me. And thanks for the opportunity.
Absolutely. And we will be back with more sessions with Jason on different topics. If you have something specific that you'd like us to discuss, let us know. You know how to get hold of us. We're doing these sessions every day now. But with that, I'd like to thank you, everyone, and have a great weekend. Bye now.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.